You know what's actually insane? Some men in the office act like simple courtesy is optional. We're all adults. We're all cashing checks from the same company. But apparently, saying, "Good morning," is asking too much. I'm Brittany, 27, and I work in the billing department of a logistics firm. My husband Cameron is 30, does construction, and swears office drama is just women being extra. Easy for him to say when his co-workers just grunt at each other and call it communication. But in my office, there's this guy, Logan, who acts like I'm invisible. He sits 3 desks over in our open workspace, and it's like he goes out of his way to avoid me. Every morning, when I greet the room, he buries himself in his screen like typing is brain surgery. If I'm chatting with co-workers about weekend plans, he puts earbuds in or suddenly finds urgent tasks. At first, I figured maybe he was shy or dealing with stuff personally. I'm naturally social. I believe in building a positive environment where people feel acknowledged. But Logan's behavior came across as deliberately rude. We've worked together 8 months and he's never once looked me in the eye during meetings. He'll answer the boss, laugh with the guys about sports, but the second I speak, dead silence. Freeze out. Cameron kept telling me not to take it to heart. Some dudes are just antisocial, Brit. Don't overthink it. But it did feel personal. He'd engage when it was all men. The moment I joined in, he'd clam up or even move away. It was starting to feel hostile. The breaking point came in a team meeting when I suggested an upgrade for our billing system. Logan rolled his eyes and shuffled papers like I was wasting air. Jensen, our customer service rep, noticed too and shot me a look that confirmed I wasn't crazy. That's when I started keeping notes, ready to take it to HR. I wasn't going to let some guy's issues with women dictate my work environment. And Jensen turned out to be a great listener when I needed validation. After 3 more weeks of Logan's cold shoulder, I scheduled a meeting with Patricia, our HR rep. I laid out my documentation, the eye rolling, leaving rooms when I entered, ignoring my points in group emails. I need to talk about something that's affecting my job performance, I told her. Logan's behavior toward me is creating a hostile environment. She went over my notes, asked about dates, witnesses, details. Have you tried speaking to Logan directly? She asked. Patricia, the man won't even look at me. How am I supposed to talk to someone who pretends I don't exist? I explained how his behavior changed depending on gender and how it was harming team dynamics. She promised to look into it, and honestly, I felt lighter. Finally, someone taking me seriously instead of dismissing me like Cameron always did. But then things shifted. After that HR meeting, Jensen came by my desk with coffee and asked how it went. He'd witnessed some of Logan's stunts himself and told me flat out it wasn't professional. Jensen started checking in more after that. He'd stop by, bring me coffee, even say he'd vouch for me if HR needed it. It was refreshing to have a coworker who cared about keeping the workplace supportive. We started having lunch together, usually in his car to dodge the break room tension with Logan nearby. Unlike Cameron, who brushed everything off, Jensen actually listened and offered advice. You deserve to feel comfortable here. Don't let Logan's hang-ups become your burden, he told me once. Those lunches became my favorite part of the day. Jensen had a way of making me laugh, helping me focus on more than Logan's antics. He paid attention in ways Cameron hadn't in a while. Cameron would come home exhausted, barely asking about my day. Jensen, on the other hand, asked, cared, and remembered. I wasn't chasing anything inappropriate, just normal human connection with someone who respected me. But I can't lie, I started looking forward to Jensen's texts, his excuses to swing by my desk, his coffee runs. Meanwhile, Logan doubled down after the HR report. Now he'd avoid being in the same room altogether, which honestly proved my point. Jensen and I fell into a rhythm, morning coffee, lunch breaks in his car, casual messages, checking whether Logan bothered me. It felt normal, supportive, like how a workplace should be. Your husband doesn't know how lucky he is, Jensen told me one afternoon as we shared takeout in his car. Most guys would kill to have someone like you, strong enough to stand up for herself. I laughed it off, but it struck deep. Cameron had brushed my stress off like it was petty. Jensen got it. He saw me. He cared about how all of this was affecting me. That shift from just colleagues to something more, It happened slowly. His hand on my shoulder when I vented, sitting a little closer in his car. He started staying late whenever I had extra reports to finish, offering to pitch in even though his role wasn't connected to mine. "I hate watching you get stressed over this stuff," he said one evening as we were packing up together. The office was nearly empty, just us and the night security guard. When Jensen kissed me that night, it didn't feel planned or wrong. It felt like the natural outcome of having someone who actually saw me, who validated what I was going through instead of brushing it off. Cameron had been checked out for months, always too tired to engage when I tried to share what was happening with Logan. I can't pretend I didn't see where things were heading with Jensen. But when home feels indifferent and work feels hostile, you're drawn to the one person who makes you feel valued. Jensen kept things professional during office hours, but outside of that, our messages escalated. Morning greetings, midday check-ins, running jokes about office nonsense. He made me feel wanted in ways I hadn't felt in so long. The irony wasn't lost on me. Logan, who couldn't manage simple courtesy, had indirectly pushed me toward someone who understood respect. If Logan had acted like a normal colleague, none of this would have happened. Cameron stayed oblivious. He'd eat dinner in front of the TV, barely noticing if I said I was working late or grabbing drinks with coworkers. His detachment only made Jensen's attention feel more important. "Some guys just don't realize what they've got," Jensen told me one night after I mentioned Cameron's distance. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. 3 weeks after my initial complaint, Patricia called me back for a follow-up. I expected news of disciplinary action against Logan, maybe an apology or training. Instead, she wore this unreadable look. "Brittany, I've completed my review of your concerns about Logan," she began, flipping through a thick file. "I interviewed multiple employees about office dynamics and his behavior." I leaned forward, ready for validation. Finally, someone addressing his unprofessional conduct. But Patricia went on, "The feedback shows Logan is generally quiet and limits interaction with everyone, not just you. His approach seems consistent across colleagues." What? That couldn't be right. I'd seen him laugh with others, chat casually. He froze, only me out. But Patricia explained that several coworkers described him as equally reserved across the board. Then she paused. "However, multiple employees raised concerns about your interactions with Jensen." My stomach turned. What kind of concerns? Extended private conversations. Eating lunch together off-site. Staying late when your departments don't overlap. Frequent texting during work hours. Patricia's tone shifted into formality. "There are policies regarding personal relationships that may create conflicts of interest or disrupt team balance." I felt blindsided. I'd reported clear hostility, and instead of focusing on that, they were questioning my friendships. "Brittany, the investigation shows Logan's behavior isn't harassment. He's consistent with everyone and maintains boundaries. But your relationship with Jensen raises issues around time management, favoritism, and conduct." Unbelievable. Logan could keep being antisocial with zero consequence, but I was the one under the microscope. "This feels retaliatory," I told her. "Jensen's been nothing but supportive during a hostile situation." But even as I said it, I knew how our coffee runs, lunches in his car, and constant texting might look to outsiders. The truth was, I needed that outlet because Logan had made my job miserable. Patricia set another meeting for the following week, saying she needed more time to finish. I left furious. Instead of solving the problem, they were penalizing me for how I coped. Back at my desk, Jensen was waiting. He read my expression instantly. When I told him, he sighed like he'd expected it. "I figured this might surface eventually," he admitted. "People talk. But you haven't done anything wrong by leaning on someone during a tough time." In hindsight, that should have been a warning. But I was too angry at HR's backwards logic to question it. The unraveling came the next Tuesday when Cameron surprised me at work. He'd taken a half day and wanted to bring me lunch, saying he felt guilty about being distracted with deadlines. Sweet idea. Terrible timing. I was in Jensen's cubicle when he showed up at reception. We weren't doing anything inappropriate, just talking about other companies where we might both feel happier. But when the receptionist paged my extension, announcing my husband had arrived with lunch, the optics couldn't have been worse. Cameron appeared in Jensen's doorway, holding a bag from my favorite sandwich spot. His face shifted from confusion to suspicion as he took in the scene, me sitting close to Jensen, our conversation cutting off mid-sentence, the familiarity between us. "Hey babe," I said quickly, standing up. "This is Jensen, from customer service. We were just reviewing some billing processes." Jensen covered smoothly, explaining we were coordinating cross-departmental procedures. But I could see Cameron processing it all, how at ease Jensen seemed with me, how guilty we looked even while talking shop, how I was tucked away in another department's cubicle with the door half closed. "Nice to meet you," Cameron said to Jensen, his voice cooler than usual. Then to me, "Ready for lunch, Britt?" Over lunch, Cameron stayed unusually quiet, asking casual questions about Jensen and how long we'd been working together. I explained about Logan and how Jensen had been supportive, but Cameron's replies were clipped. He was paying closer attention than he had in months, and it made me uneasy. That afternoon, Patricia summoned me again. This time, she wasn't alone. Her supervisor sat in, along with someone from legal. "Brittany, we've received further reports about your interactions with Jensen," Patricia said. "There are significant concerns regarding policy violations, misuse of company time, and potential conflicts of interest." The questions grew sharper. How often did Jensen and I talk outside work? Had we met privately after hours? Were company tools being used for personal messages? Had our relationship affected our decisions or performance? I felt cornered. "I reported harassment from Logan," I insisted. "Instead of addressing that, you're inventing problems where none exist. Jensen has simply been supportive during a hostile situation." The legal rep responded flatly, "The review shows Logan hasn't breached policy. His interactions are consistent with all staff. But your conduct with Jensen raises concerns about professionalism and compliance." They scheduled a final session for the next week after interviewing more employees. I walked out certain I was being set up to shoulder blame while Logan's coldness got excused. The bigger issue came at home. That night, Cameron seemed different, attentive, but in an investigative way. He asked about my day, about Jensen, about why I'd never mentioned working so closely with someone from another department. I tried to explain, but his expression said he was piecing together things he didn't like. And honestly, I wasn't sure how to make it sound innocent. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Cameron suddenly noticed everything. My late nights, how often I checked my phone, even the effort I put into dressing for work. When he eventually saw the messages between Jensen and me, he didn't explode. He just looked disappointed, which cut deeper than anger. "How long has this been happening?" he asked, scrolling through strings of texts that looked far more intimate when read together. I tried to defend myself, talked about feeling unsupported, about Logan, about Jensen being there when Cameron wasn't, but Cameron just listened silently, occasionally asking about specific dates. "Brittany, these don't read like workplace support," he said at last. He placed my phone down carefully. "They read like you've been having an emotional affair for 2 months." The word affair stung. But from his perspective, the daily texts, the inside jokes, the talks about switching jobs together, yeah, it looked that way. The truth was, I'd leaned on Jensen because my own husband felt unreachable. That night Cameron moved into the guest room. No shouting, no ultimatums, just quiet distance and a focus on practical steps to separate our lives. He approached it like another construction project, systematic, efficient, inevitable. Meanwhile, work imploded. At the final HR meeting, they told me colleagues had confirmed Logan was distant with everyone, not just me. But they also laid out the extent of Jensen's and my closeness, our daily texts, off-site lunches, late nights, personal conversations on company time. Both of us received written warnings for misconduct and boundary violations. What cut deepest, though, was what came next. HR had uncovered a pattern. Jensen had formed these supportive relationships before, always with female coworkers in tough situations. I wasn't unique. I was just the latest in a series. Realizing I wasn't special, just another story in his cycle, hurt more than the HR penalty. Logan, meanwhile, kept his head down, working quietly, unaffected. My life, though, unraveled. Cameron filed for divorce 10 weeks later. No fights, no counseling, just paperwork and division of assets. And when you're the one who strayed, sympathy is scarce. Friends, family, even the court all saw Cameron as the steady one I'd taken for granted. 4 months after everything collapsed, I was still job hunting with an HR mark on my record when I ran into Logan at a coffee shop. He was with his girlfriend, laughing easily, relaxed. He noticed me, gave a polite nod, the same reserved but respectful acknowledgement he'd always shown. In that moment, it hit me. His so-called hostility had only ever been him keeping boundaries, steering clear of the very drama I'd created. Cameron moved on fast, not out of spite, but because that's who he is, practical, decisive, building something steady. Last I heard, he's with someone who values dependability more than excitement, someone who doesn't need constant validation to feel loved. I'm 28 now, living in a smaller apartment, still trying to rebuild after losing my marriage and career. Jensen left for another company, probably scouting his next confidant. Logan. Still at the same desk, working quietly, professionally, drama-free. What lingers with me isn't just the divorce or the job loss. It's the realization that I misread everyone. Cameron was reliable but distant. Jensen was attentive but manipulative. Logan was reserved but professional. I picked the wrong battles and trusted the wrong person. At least now I know, sometimes the quiet ones have the clearest boundaries, and maybe the best idea of all.